tax collectors of empire, revenue systems and administrative power. The imperial revenue agent in the administrative quarters of Texcoco, where tribute collection records covered an entire wall with pictographic codices documenting the empire's vast revenue streams from over 400 tributary communities. Calpixqui Itzel Cuauhtemoc, the most efficient provincial tax collector in the Triple Alliance, reviewed the quarterly reports that would determine the fiscal health of 3 entire provinces, while understanding that authentic imperial power depended not merely on military conquest, but on systematic revenue extraction that could transform conquered territories into productive economic assets, serving the empire's continued expansion and administrative sophistication. The morning began with verification of tribute schedules from the Aztec provinces along the Gulf Coast, where 27 communities owed cotton textiles, cacao beans, tropical bird feathers and precious shells according to assessments calculated 3 years earlier. Each settlement's obligations had been carefully determined based on population estimates, agricultural productivity, and access to valuable resources, creating a complex matrix of expectations that required constant monitoring and adjustment. The coastal communities are experiencing difficulties meeting their cotton quotas due to excessive rainfall during the growing season, reported Tlacaelel, a junior administrator who specialized in textile tribute. Should we adjust their assessments or maintain pressure for full delivery? This decision carried implications beyond simple bookkeeping. Tribute obligations served multiple purposes, generating imperial revenue, demonstrating political submission, and maintaining administrative control over distant territories. Reducing quotas could encourage other communities to claim similar hardships, while maintaining impossible demands might provoke rebellions that would require costly military intervention. Itzel examined the detailed weather reports compiled by the empire's network of provincial observers. The coastal regions had indeed received unusual rainfall that could legitimately affect cotton production. However, the affected communities had previously met their obligations consistently, suggesting genuine hardship rather than resistance or fraud. Reduce cotton textile requirements by 20% for this collection cycle, he decided after careful consideration. However, increase their precious shell quotas proportionally to maintain overall tribute value. The coastal communities have better access to marine resources that can compensate for reduced agricultural production. Such adjustments required sophisticated understanding of regional economics, political psychology, and administrative efficiency. Successful tax collectors balanced revenue generation with political stability, ensuring that imperial demands remained achievable while maximizing the empire's economic benefits from conquered territories. The tribute collection system operated through a carefully coordinated hierarchy of officials who transformed imperial policy into practical administrative action. At the top, the Calpixque coordinated empire-wide revenue policy from Tenochtitlan, while regional Calpixque like Itzel managed specific provinces or groups of communities. Local Tlatoani served as intermediaries, responsible for gathering required goods and delivering them to imperial collection centers according to precisely scheduled timetables. This morning's most challenging case involved a dispute between 2 communities in the mountain provinces over responsibility for delivering obsidian tools and weapons. The towns of Tepetlaostok and Chiautla both claimed that recent boundary changes had altered their traditional obligations, creating confusion about which settlement owed specific categories of tribute goods. Both communities are attempting to reduce their obligations by claiming the other should bear responsibility for the most valuable tribute categories, observed Nezawalcoyotl, an experienced administrator who handled boundary and jurisdiction disputes. The obsidian tool requirements are particularly contentious because both towns have access to volcanic glass sources. Itzel studied maps showing the disputed territory and reviewed historical tribute records dating back 15 years. The boundary changes had indeed occurred following a local inheritance dispute that affected traditional resource access patterns. However, both communities were attempting to exploit the confusion to reduce their overall tribute burdens rather than seeking fair resolution of legitimate territorial questions. Convene a formal hearing with representatives from both communities, he instructed. We'll examine their historical tribute records, current resource access, and population levels to establish fair quotas that reflect actual capabilities rather than political maneuvering. Such disputes required diplomatic skill as well as administrative expertise. Tax collectors served as quasi-judicial officials whose decisions affected local political relationships while maintaining imperial authority and revenue streams. Poor judgments could destabilize entire regions, while overly lenient policies might encourage widespread resistance to tribute obligations. The empire's revenue system depended on detailed documentation that tracked every aspect of tribute collection and delivery. Specialized scribes maintained pictographic codices showing tribute schedules, delivery dates, regional production capabilities, and historical payment patterns. These records enabled sophisticated economic planning and helped identify potential problems before they became serious administrative challenges. The Codex Mendoza, one of the empire's most comprehensive tribute records, listed specific obligations for over 400 communities throughout Mesoamerica. Each entry included pictographic representations of required goods, quantities expected, and delivery schedules, creating a visual database that could be consulted by administrators at every level of the imperial hierarchy. The Codex shows that the valley communities consistently exceed their maize and bean quotas while struggling with featherwork obligations, noted Xochitl, a specialist in agricultural tribute who had spent 10 years analyzing production patterns. We should consider adjusting their requirements to better match regional capabilities. This observation reflected the sophisticated economic intelligence that effective tribute administration required. Successful tax collectors studied long-term trends, seasonal variations, and regional specializations to optimize revenue collection while maintaining sustainable production levels in tributary communities. The political implications of tribute collection extended far beyond simple revenue generation. Communities that met their obligations reliably earned recognition as loyal subjects of the empire, receiving protection from external enemies and access to imperial trade networks. Those that resisted or failed to deliver required goods faced military intervention, increased quotas, or replacement of local leaders with imperial appointees. This afternoon brought news that 3 communities in the eastern provinces had failed to deliver their scheduled tribute shipments. Such deficiencies required immediate investigation to determine whether the problems resulted from legitimate hardships, administrative confusion, or deliberate resistance that might indicate brewing rebellion. Send inspection teams to all 3 communities within 5 days, Itzel ordered after reviewing the situation reports. Include military escorts sufficient to ensure administrator safety, but not so large as to appear provocative. We need accurate information about conditions in those regions before determining appropriate responses. The inspection teams would investigate production capabilities, political loyalty, and potential security threats while demonstrating imperial attention to tribute obligations. Their reports would determine whether the communities received assistance, adjusted quotas, or punitive action depending on the circumstances they discovered. Transportation logistics represented one of the tribute system's most complex challenges. Goods collected from hundreds of communities throughout Mesoamerica had to be transported to imperial warehouses in the major cities of the Triple Alliance. This required coordinating thousands of porters, establishing secure routes, and maintaining supply stations capable of supporting large convoys traveling across diverse terrain. The Calpixque merchant class played crucial roles in tribute transportation, using their established trade networks to move imperial goods efficiently while conducting commercial activities that generated additional revenue for the empire. These professional traders possessed detailed knowledge of routes, seasonal conditions, and regional security situations that made them invaluable partners in tribute administration. The Calpixque report unusual military activity in the regions bordering Tlaxcala territory warned Calpixque, an intelligence specialist who coordinated information from merchant networks. 3 tribute convoys have been delayed due to increased security precautions, and local communities are expressing concerns about potential conflict. Such intelligence affected tribute collection in multiple ways. Military threats could disrupt transportation routes, force communities to divert resources toward defense, or indicate political instability that might spread to other regions. Tax collectors needed to balance revenue expectations with security realities, adjusting collection schedules when necessary to avoid unnecessary risks. The tribute assessment process required sophisticated understanding of regional economics and production capabilities. New communities entering the imperial system underwent detailed evaluation to determine appropriate tribute obligations that would generate maximum revenue without destroying local economies or provoking resistance. Assessment teams included specialists in agriculture, crafts, military capabilities, and political organization who spent months in target communities documenting resources, population levels, and productive capacity. Their reports formed the basis for tribute quotas that would govern imperial community relationships for years to come. The recently conquered Mixtec communities show exceptional skill in goldworking and jade carving, reported Tlaxcala from his assessment of southern provinces. However, their agricultural production barely meets local subsistence needs. We should focus tribute requirements on luxury crafts rather than foodstuffs. This analysis demonstrated the specialized expertise that effective tribute administration required. Different regions offered different advantages to the imperial economy, and successful tax collectors learned to match tribute demands with local capabilities rather than applying uniform requirements across diverse territories. Quality control represented another critical aspect of tribute administration. Imperial warehouses maintained strict standards for goods received from tributary communities, rejecting substandard materials that failed to meet established specifications. This policy ensured that tribute goods served their intended purposes while maintaining the empire's reputation for quality in diplomatic and commercial relationships. The textile tribute from the Totonac provinces shows declining quality over the past 2 collection cycles, observed Citlali, a specialist in craft production standards. The cotton thread appears thinner and the weaving less tight than previous deliveries. Such quality problems could indicate various issues: declining craftsmanship skills, reduced access to quality materials, attempts to fulfill quotas with inferior goods, or simple negligence in production standards. Tax collectors needed to investigate quality problems systematically to determine appropriate corrective actions. Dispatch craft specialists to the Totonac regions to assess production methods and provide technical assistance if needed, Itzel decided. If communities lack adequate materials or skills, we should help them improve rather than simply rejecting their tribute. However, if they're deliberately providing inferior goods, appropriate penalties must be imposed. The empire's tribute system also served important political functions beyond revenue generation. Regular tribute deliveries created ongoing relationships between imperial administrators and local leaders that facilitated communication, intelligence gathering, and political coordination across the empire's vast territories. Tribute ceremonies in Tenochtitlan provided opportunities for local leaders to visit the imperial capital, witness the empire's power and prosperity, and participate in political rituals that reinforced their subordinate status while offering them prestigious roles in imperial governance. These events combined practical administration with political theater, demonstrating imperial wealth while creating personal relationships between central and local authorities. The annual tribute festival requires coordination of deliveries from over 300 communities during a 2-week period, noted Yeotl, who specialized in ceremonial logistics. Representatives from tributary communities must be housed, fed, and entertained while their goods are inventoried and distributed to imperial warehouses. This massive logistical undertaking required months of advance planning and coordination between multiple governmental departments. However, the political benefits of bringing tributary leaders to Tenochtitlan justified the enormous effort involved in managing such complex events. The economic impact of tribute collection extended throughout imperial society. Artisans in the major cities depended on tribute materials for their craft production, while noble households relied on tribute goods to maintain their elevated lifestyles. The imperial military received weapons, armor, and supplies through the tribute system, while religious institutions obtained materials for ceremonies and temple maintenance. Revenue allocation decisions affected every aspect of imperial governance. Tax collectors worked closely with military commanders, religious leaders, and construction administrators to ensure that tribute resources served strategic priorities while maintaining adequate reserves for emergencies or unexpected opportunities. Military commanders request increased allocations of obsidian weapons and cotton armor for the upcoming campaign season, reported Milintica, who coordinated resource distribution. However, construction projects for the new temple complex also require substantial material inputs, creating competing demands for limited tribute resources. Such allocation decisions required balancing competing priorities while maintaining the tribute system's overall effectiveness. Military needs had to be met to protect imperial territories and enable continued expansion, while religious construction projects reinforced imperial legitimacy and provided employment for urban populations. The tribute system's administrative complexity required constant innovation and improvement. Tax collectors regularly reviewed collection procedures, transportation methods, and quality control standards to identify opportunities for increased efficiency or effectiveness. These innovations often spread throughout the imperial administration, contributing to the empire's overall governmental sophistication. Recent experiments with standardized packaging for cacao bean tribute have reduced transportation costs and improved storage efficiency, observed Texcoco Itzel, who managed experimental programs for administrative improvement. We should consider extending similar packaging standards to other tribute categories. Such innovations demonstrated the empire's commitment to administrative excellence and continuous improvement. Effective tax collectors served as more than simple revenue gatherers. They functioned as administrators, diplomats, economists, and innovators whose work contributed to imperial success across multiple dimensions. The political psychology of tribute collection required understanding how different communities responded to imperial authority. Some regions embraced imperial membership for the security and trade opportunities it provided, while others resented foreign domination and sought opportunities to reduce their obligations or escape imperial control entirely. Successful tax collectors learned to recognize signs of political discontent before they developed into serious resistance movements. Early intervention could often resolve problems through negotiation or assistance, while delayed responses might require military action that was costly for both the empire and affected communities. Intelligence reports suggest growing dissatisfaction in the northern mountain provinces due to increased tribute demands combined with reduced military protection, warned Itzpapalotl, who specialized in political analysis. Local leaders are questioning whether imperial membership still provides adequate benefits to justify their obligations. Such political intelligence required immediate attention from senior administrators. The tribute system's long-term sustainability depended on maintaining reasonable relationships with tributary communities rather than simply extracting maximum short-term revenue without regard for political consequences. The empire's tax collectors represented the human face of imperial authority for most subject populations. Their professionalism, fairness, and competence directly affected how ordinary people experienced imperial rule. Corrupt or abusive tax collectors could destabilize entire regions, while skilled administrators strengthened imperial legitimacy through effective and reasonable governance. Training programs for tribute collectors emphasized not just technical skills, but also diplomatic capabilities and political sensitivity. New administrators studied regional customs, learned local languages, and practiced negotiation techniques that would help them manage the complex relationships that effective tribute collection required. As the day concluded and Itzel reviewed the reports that would be forwarded to Imperial headquarters in Tenochtitlan, he reflected on the tremendous responsibility that tribute administration entailed. The empire's continued prosperity depended on maintaining the delicate balance between revenue extraction and political stability that enabled millions of people to live productive lives under imperial authority. The tax collectors of the Aztec Empire served as more than simple revenue gatherers. They were the administrators, diplomats, and economic analysts whose daily work sustained one of history's most sophisticated political systems. Their professional competence and dedication enabled the empire to transform conquest into governance, turning military victories into lasting political relationships that benefited both imperial authorities and subject populations throughout Mesoamerica. The tribute system they managed represented a remarkable achievement in administrative sophistication, economic coordination, and political integration. Through their efforts, the diverse peoples and resources of a vast empire were organized into productive networks that generated unprecedented prosperity while maintaining the political stability necessary for continued growth and development across the complex civilizations of pre-Columbian America.